But anyways, going to first down, first and 10. Let's talk UFC 251. And this fight card appears to be one of the best fight cards put together by Dana White up to date. I'm super excited about UFC 251. It's been the headlines recently because of a fight change with the main event, and I'll actually get to that at the end, which is really the reason why I think the UFC 251, the main card was already stacked. It was already stacked, but due to recent change in the main event, I think it hit even higher level, even on short notice for one of the fighters. And again, I'll get into that in a bit, but I'm going to go through the main card, give you my prediction, as well as some of the betting odds for each of the fighters and what I think is going to happen. So UFC Fight Night's here. Or not Fight Night, but UFC Fight Island is here. And it's going to be insane. This is the first card that they're having at Fight Island. Everybody's super excited about this. And there's no better way to open up Fight Island and have that debut than the UFC 251 card that they put together. So big ups to Dana White, who's always doing his thing when it comes to putting cards together. Again, UFC has been getting better and better, and their partnership with ESPN that started last year has been excellent for the sport. It has exponentially grown the viewership and the audience of the UFC. I've been more in tune with the UFC, watching the fight nights and all the fights that are put up on ESPN Plus. ESPN Plus executives, Disney executives, if you're listening, remember your boy when you're talking about sponsoring podcast shows. But let's get into this main card. To start off the main card in the flyweight women's division, we got Amanda Heba versus Paige Vanzant. And this one is lopsided when you think of the odds in Vegas. Amanda Heba is actually the biggest favorite on the whole card. In some places, she's minus 900. Right now, she's minus 850 on Bovada versus Paige Vanzant, who's plus 525. I mean, that's huge. We're talking huge money here if Paige Vanzant wins. Heba is currently 9-1. She had 3 fights in the UFC, won all 3. So currently she's undefeated in the UFC, 3-0, going against Paige Vanzant, who is going through some difficult times with the UFC when it comes to contract extension and, staying with the UFC. She made some comments about she can make more money being a social media influencer than fighting in the UFC, which is probably true for the most part. But, I'm sure that if she's able to win here, she'll probably be able to ask for more money from the UFC, given that Dana White wants to re-sign her after those comments. But Heba, again, highly this is one of those fights where if it's taken to the ground, Amanda Heba has the advantage there. Paige Vanzant wants to keep it on. Her plan should be to try to keep it on her feet. She's not a terrible grappler. She's able to get out of tough situations while on her back or on the ground. But for her key to victory is to stay on her feet, stay on the outside, pick and choose her shots. And for Amanda Heba, she's comfortable on the ground. She's comfortable striking. So she pretty much, is all around pretty good fighter. But again, if she gets her on the ground with her jiu-jitsu, then she has an advantage there. And she's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu as well as judo. So Amanda Heba's Brazilian, very dangerous fighter, and could make her, make a statement in the flyweight division as someone that, again, this will be her 4th fight in the UFC. And if she beats Paige Vanzant, then she is going to solidify herself as one of the, not a major contender at this point, but someone that needs to be reckoned with in the flyweight division. Now, going to the strawweight division for the women's strawweight division, this is actually a rematch. And we have 2 former champions. We have Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas. Thug Rose, as some of you might know. This is a rematch. The initial fight was last year in May, and Thug Rose, as I like to call her, was a champion at the time, going into a hostile environment in Brazil, in the homeland of Jessica Andrade, defending. Rose is defending her title that she didn't just win it, but this was her second title defense. And she looked pretty dominant during that first fight. Obviously the equalizers when she got slammed on her head and pretty much knocked unconscious. But Thug Rose looked very good in that first fight. Again, Jessica Andrade is just the stronger fighter, kind of tough, out muscled her and flipped her on her head. So that was the equalizer there. But Thug Rose right now is a favorite, so she's minus 210. Jessica Andrade plus 170. But actually going to the last fight, Amanda Heba is minus 850. I would actually go with that. She is a favorite for that fight for a reason. And I don't see Paige Vanzant, with the huge upset. But anyways, going back to the Andrade Namajunas fight, Thug Rose minus 210. I would actually go with that. Again, she looked very comfortable in the first fight. And she did talk about some of the issues that she was having. She went into the fight, I wouldn't say scared, but she was very anxious in that fight because it was in Brazil, where she said it's one of the scariest places to fight. And also she had all of this pressure and weight on her shoulders. After the fight in the first time versus Jessica Andrade, she talked about that she was relieved when she lost because she didn't have to worry about defending the title. Defending the title carries so much more weight because now you're the hunted. You're no longer being hunted. You're the hunted, and you have to motivate yourself. You have to make sure that you're 100% because you have everything to lose. The other person's a contender. They have nothing to lose. So Thug Rose has pretty much, she's coming here with house money. She hasn't fought in a year. Her last fight was against Andrade in Brazil. So she has her mindset, clear. She has nothing to worry about as far as weight on her back. She doesn't have the title. And now she could come in and fight her fight and doesn't have to fight in Brazil, which is another thing, again, that kind of mentally got to her the last time she fought. So I'm going with Thug Rose minus 210. Again, for those of you that are placing bets, don't blame me if these bets don't go through, if they don't win, if they ain't winning tickets. You are an adult and you make your own decisions with how you want to place your money, given that you're in a state where you can legally bet. So let's get that out there as well. I'm not trying to get sued. But going into this one as well, so Andrade is coming off a tough loss where she lost to Zhang Weili in 42 seconds. So it was a first round KO. Given Andrade, the benefit of the doubt, she kind of went into similar waters as Thug Rose when Thug Rose went to Brazil to defend her title. Andrade went to China to defend her title versus one of the strongest strawweights in the world, Zhang Weili, who's currently the champion in that division. So it's not a horrible thing to lose to Zhang Weili, but losing in 42 seconds in the first round, getting knocked out is pretty bad. But again, she went against she went against who is currently the champ right now. Now, going into our first title fight in the bantamweight division, we have Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo. And this one is going to be a tough fight. I'm actually excited about this. Remember, this UFC 251 card, the main card, has 3 title fights. And again, they could have broke some of these out into separate pay-per-view events, but they decided to make this card, again, to open up Fight Island and hit you guys with the best card that they can make at the time. So I'm super pumped for this. But this fight, Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo, again, this is the title, the bantamweight title that was vacated by Henry Cejudo after he retired. He was supposed to go against Jose Aldo to defend the bantamweight title. Jose Aldo had to drop out of that fight. Henry Cejudo ended up defending it, and after that fight, he ended up retiring. And this is one of the reasons why Jose Aldo has this opportunity to fight for the bantamweight title. So Jose Aldo only had one bantamweight fight, and that was his last fight versus Marlon Moraes, and he actually lost that fight. But a lot of people, including me, thought that he actually won the fight. It was just bad judging. But Henry Cejudo gave Jose Aldo an opportunity to fight for the bantamweight title. He wanted to give him that respect because Henry Cejudo also thought that Jose Aldo won and was cheated out of a decision. So he gave him that opportunity to fight for the belt. Again, the fight didn't actually come through, but since Jose Aldo was about to fight for the title and he didn't end up fighting for it, he was still in position to fight for it. So that's why Dana White essentially didn't give Jose Aldo this opportunity, but he earned it, I guess, to some degree, however you want to see it. And Peter Yan is dangerous, right? If you guys have seen him, but this is Yan's toughest test currently in the UFC. While he's been in the UFC, Jose Aldo's coming off of 2 straight losses, but it's nothing to be ashamed about. Again, he went against Marlon Moraes, who he should have won, or he did win, at least I believe, in his last fight. And the fight before that, he went against Alexander Volkanovski, who I'll actually get into because he's part of the co-main event in this card. So losing to those 2 guys, or losing to Volkanovski, obviously is not that bad because he's the champion right now. But Marlon Moraes, that should have been a win for Jose Aldo. And so I'm actually going to go with the dog money. This is my first underdog. I'm going with Jose Aldo. He's plus 185 to Peter Yan's minus 235. I think Jose Aldo, if he's able to, to be himself with the leg kicks and with the striking, I think he has the opportunity to win and win by knockout. But I am going to go with Jose Aldo as an underdog. Again, plus 185. Book that. That's my first dog of the night, and I only have 2. So I'll get into my second dog. But Jose Aldo for the win. And then in the co-main event, we have the featherweight title fight. This is a rematch versus Alexander Volkanovski, who is the champion, versus one of the GOATs in the featherweight division, or arguably the GOAT in the featherweight division, Max Holloway. And this one was a tough fight for me because if you watch the first fight, Volkanovski did enough to win the fight, and it was close. It was a close fight. It came down to a decision. You never like to see the incumbent champion lose a close decision. You never want to leave it in the judge's hands, especially, having a changing of guard, changing of the championship with a close fight and the judges scoring it, towards Volkanovski, which, again, Volkanovski won the fight, but it's hard to call somebody a champion when it's like a close fight and the judges kind of score it that way. You like to see the champion or the challenger win the belt as far as a dominant performance, and it wasn't a dominant performance, at least from what I remember of the fight. But we have, again, a rematch, and I think Max Holloway is going to be ready for this fight. I think that after losing to Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway went back to the featherweight division. Like, I'm going to run through this division like I always have. And, I don't think his whole mindset was there. But after watching Max Holloway lose and get emotional after losing his belt to Volkanovski, I think that relit the motivation underneath him to let him know that, hey, this is real. I still got to put in the work. I'm not going to cruise through these featherweights. Volkanovski is a tough opponent, and he's going to be a great champion if he could get past Max Holloway again. In the featherweight division, whenever there is a new champion, they usually have a dominant run. And, Volkanovski definitely has that potential to be a great featherweight champion if he could get by Max Holloway again, which I am not going to say that that's going to happen. I'm going with Max Holloway here, a more motivated Max Holloway, someone that knows his potential, that knows that he is the better fighter. And Max Holloway right now is the underdog. He's plus 175. I would take the plus 175 to Volkanovski's minus 225. Again, these are odds based on Bovada, so they could differ slightly depending on what sports bookie you use, but I'm going with Max Holloway, another dog. So that's my second dog of the fight, or of the fight card. And let's go into the main event. Now this one will take a little bit longer, because this one was supposed to be versus Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns, who were teammates, or they still are technically. And Gilbert Burns recently actually tested positive for COVID, which he was forced to. Obviously, he can't fight. Just because of the risk of other fighters and staff members getting it, at Fight Island. So they had to take him off of the card. And for a second, after looking at so there was a good few days where no one knew if that fight was going to be canceled or if they were going to look for another contender to come up. Knowing the UFC, they usually look for another contender that's willing to jump in on short notice. And after looking at the list, because I was looking at the list of welterweight fighters and the rankings and everything, it made sense that it was either going to be Colby Covington or Jorge Masvidal. And at least that was my thought process. Those were the two fights that I wanted to see, for the replacement. But Colby Covington, obviously, I would assume him as the number one contender right now would want a full camp to prepare if they're going to get another shot. And then Jorge Masvidal, he had some contract disputes with the UFC, so it was unclear whether he wanted to fight until UFC was willing to pay him the money. So I was a little hesitant to see either one of those guys jump in here. Those were the names I was hoping for. And, I just didn't know who was going to jump in. Tyron Woodley had lost. It just didn't seem like there would be a good fit other than those two names that I just brought up. But UFC, Dana White got it done. And, man, I don't think anyone anticipated this. I think a lot of people were hoping for this, but Jorge Masvidal was able to get something done. He's ready to go. He's ready to fight, and this is going to be the main event. So it's going to be Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. Game bread. It's going to be an insane fight. I think this was the fight that everybody wanted in the first place, but again, when it comes down to money, I think Jorge Masvidal, if he was training this whole time, I think that he got his money now. I think that's the reason why he's jumping up, because I think Dana White was in panic mode after his main event of the new Fight Island was going, essentially getting wrecked because the main event was going to, one of the contenders for the main event had to drop out because of COVID. He had to make a deal with Jorge to get him out and take this fight. And I'm sure Jorge Masvidal wanted this fight as well. He wanted to get that championship fight in. He's fought a ton of fights in the UFC and just a ton of MMA fights in general. I think he deserves a title fight, and I think this is going to be an insane main event. Kamaru Usman, Jorge Masvidal, both coming off of great wins. Kamaru Usman stopping Colby Covington in the 5th round of their last fight. That was an insane fight, and Jorge Masvidal put on a show against Nate Diaz. That was insane as well. So this is going to be an insane fight. I know that Kamaru Usman has the advantage when it goes to the ground. His wrestling is superior compared to Jorge Masvidal. But knowing Kamaru Usman, he is going to stand up with Jorge Masvidal, and he's going to show him that he could outstrike him as well. If he wants to take him on the ground, I think he can, and I think he would do it in dominant fashion if it got to the ground. But I think Kamaru Usman wants to prove a point, especially in a fight where he does not like Jorge Masvidal. You could tell that both of these guys definitely aren't fans of each other. This is not similar to the Colby Covington where Colby Covington was saying racist things and kind of playing a character. These guys aren't playing a character. They're just two guys that are just real, and you could tell that their dislike for each other is real as well. But I think this is going to be a stand-up fight. I am going to go with Kamaru Usman at minus 280 over Masvidal's 220. Anything could happen because Masvidal, he has the equalizer with his hands and has that knockout capability. So for those that are looking to get on the dog, the side of the dog money, I would not be upset with that either because Jorge Masvidal can stop. He has the ability to end this fight early if he wants to, or if he has the opportunity to. But Kamaru Usman, again, he's been training for this. Obviously, it's a different opponent, different game plan, but he has been training, and Jorge Masvidal is taking this off of 1 week's notice, so he's already at a disadvantage. We don't know what Jorge Masvidal's preparation is prior to this, but we know that he is already, I believe he's already at Fight Island. He had to travel to Las Vegas to get tested and then fly directly to Fight Island. And obviously he's going through his training right now, but it's going to be an insane fight. This is going to be bigger ratings than, again, Burns and Usman. This is the fight that everybody wanted. Masvidal, Usman. This was the fight that everybody was waiting for. It was hyped up on social media before they talked about Burns doing it. Both of these fighters were chirping on Twitter about having this fight go down, but the money has to be there on Masvidal's side. And I'm just glad that Dana White got it done. I'm never going to lose faith in Dana White. Dana White is getting these things done. And, this might have been his best work yet, because putting a card like this on a last second notice, 1 week's notice, putting together a better card than what originally was set. I mean, it's insane. So let me know what your guys' favorite fight is. If all of them are your favorite fight, that's cool. All of these fights have the opportunity to be fight of the night. Outside of Heba's Vanzant, that one is a little bit lopsided, but the other 4 fights have the ability to be fight of the night. And again, this might be the best card yet for the UFC. It just keeps growing. The sport's growing. The audience is growing, even with no audience watching in person. This is going to be insane. I'm curious to see how Fight Island looks on the broadcast, and I'm just super excited for this. Thanks to the UFC, thanks to Dana White, thanks to ESPN getting this done, and we're ready to go. Fans are ready to go. I'm getting hyped. I'm not even going to be there, but it's just one of those things where you look at the card and it's going to be, that thing. So let me know in the comment section which fight is your favorite. Let me know who you guys think are going to win during these fights. And yeah, let's check it out, because I'm definitely going to be doing a review on this next week. Obviously, we're going to be doing a fight breakdown and going through each fight to talk about what has happened. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for more fire sports takes. And for those of you who are on the go, make sure you subscribe to our full show, which airs every Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and a bunch more. Until then, I'm chucking it up, and I'll see you guys next time.